Hi, Steve Hayes here, and welcome to Days Are Getting Better, episode number 44. Today I want to talk a little bit about AI, talk some about how I think it will help in some areas that have been really, really difficult for us to solve worldwide, especially in areas like the inclusion of the entire world and the development of the knowledge that we apply to living better lives. I want to talk a bit about some events that are coming up, um, but also I'm going to share with you a song that I wrote with the help of AI and explain why I think things like this are actually forward looking, even though they're very disruptive and um, I think may provide a model for how we might think about, at best, fingers crossed, things might evolve, I think, pretty rapidly over the next 5 or 10 years. And there'll be a couple other things. And so, with that, let's just get into it. The blog that goes along with the newsletter that goes along with this Days Are Getting Better episode is diving into some of the implications of AI for breaking out of the weird world that we live in. We don't live in there necessarily with our bodies, but we sure do in the behavioral sciences live there in our minds because we've developed methods that are dominating across the planet and that squeeze out 88% of the human population and act as if they don't matter. Uh, I've written a couple of articles on lower and middle income countries and their role in behavioral science, and I'm super proud to say that CBS, Contextual Behavioral Science, has found a way around that by process-based focus and a serious interest in lifting up the voices of people around the world. We've been doing it for 20 plus years, and the effect of that can be seen on the editorial board of our journal, the Journal of Contextual Behavioral Science, and be seen on the board of the Association of Contextual Behavioral Science, and it can be seen in the research. With this latest batch, we're up a little over 1,400 randomized controlled trials. We have another, I think, 150 to land, and I think we're going to finally actually edge over the 50% mark or come darn close to it, where more than half of the randomized controlled trials on ACT were done in the lower and middle income countries. And boy, am I proud of that. I think it's so cool. Some of them are really, really excellent pieces and published at a high level. It's true. Some are simpler, but they add something important. Now, in the blog that comes along with this, I was digging into this whole issue of why it might matter just beyond the fairness of it. And part of it is if we really are going to take the uniqueness of each person seriously, how can we geo-fence that and say, yeah, but only in the Western educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, we shall see, world? We can't. It makes no sense. 11-12% of the human population. And in terms of behavioral science, it's up in the 90s, mid 90s, the amount of research that's published and published in journals that tend to get cited a lot, or even are indexed. Scandalously, a lot of our indexing engines don't even mention research that's occurring around the world. And if you look at citations, it's actually even worse. Well, it's a model for something that applies to all of us. And here's what I mean. If you can figure out a way to cross these cultural barriers and allow every voice to matter, you're dealing with tech, with methods, with measurement systems and case conceptualization tools and statistical systems that will also help you not blur human beings into an error term and put them into an aggregate when that means that you can't see what is particularly interesting or important or needs to be addressed in the particular individual or couple or family that you're working with or care about. And that's true for psychotherapists and all behavior change agents, but it's true for everybody listening to me, because you're all dealing with behavior change all the time in your family, yourself, etc. This issue of uniqueness, and why don't we just make it all be an average? Well, because when you do, what's really important disappears. If you just hold up your finger, it's less than a square inch of skin right here. You can get a fingerprint from it, as you know. Little ink. If you get a well-made one, so that it can really be scored correctly, what is the probability that somebody else on the planet has a fingerprint that's exactly like that? It's only less than a square inch of skin. I mean, for goodness sakes, it's 8 billion people. There's got to be some people out there that have the same fingerprint. No, very unlikely. It has never, ever occurred in the history of the world that we found two fingerprints that are identical when they were well made. And we know the features that go into a fingerprint. And if you just play around, as I did recently, and working through the statistics of it, I came up with an answer I think that will shock you. It's in the blog, but I wanted to speak it out loud here. Given the uniqueness of that little piece of skin in your body, what is the likelihood that somebody else would have that same exact piece of skin? And the answer is 10 to the 11th power. You want to know how big a number that is? If you had a speck of sand, one speck of sand, and you looked at it in comparison to the entire world and all of the sand in the world, and then you did that 1 million times, 1 million Earths, that one speck of sand compared to that amount of sand is the probability that somebody else would have the same fingerprint. Just one. Multiply it by 10 digits if you have them, and it now gets to a number that literally is beyond the human imagination, and you might as well say is zero, because it would take multiple universes. It's one piece of skin. Okay, what if we're talking about your memories, your thoughts, your bodily sensations? What if we're talking about your genes, your epigenes, your brain circuits? What if we're talking about your telomeres, your culture, your family? What if we're talking about your trauma experiences or what you had for breakfast last Tuesday? Those aren't relevant to your life? More relevant than less than a square inch of skin? You see where I'm going? My friend, you are unique in the entire universe. Now, how are we going to develop a science then that empowers giving you what you need to lift you up, and for you, your relationships, your family? Well, if you do it with one size fits all, it's like saying 1 trillion Earths worth of sand could somehow be a model for this one. No, you're going to have to understand this one. You just can't blur it and understand it. Now, it turns out, and you've heard me say it before, that this is a statistical fact. It's called aggregates. It gets very geeky. We don't have to go geek on it. I want to make a bigger point here that I think we have in our behavioral science a good example of the fact that sometimes you can manage that level of complexity by trying to understand what's particular, the particular person or organism, and what lifts them up or pushes them down. And then when you understand them, combine them with others Behavior analysts did that with things like reinforcement. It's one of those kinds of principles. It's just one animal at a time, small number, but then over and over replicated, and you've got one of the best principles in all of behavioral science. It never fails you. Reinforcement, you might as well say, is a fact. It's a functional relation. It helps us interact in the world. Now, once we get over the barrier of language and cognition, relational frame theory, I think, really helps you do that. We can be beginning to do the same thing, but first we have to put away the idea that we're going to figure out what you're like by taking 100 pictures of other grains of sand that are different. And because you're different from all of them, now we know what you're like. And that's exactly what our stats do. So let me give you an example of why I think it's coming together where AI is opening up the potential to do something really cool. What if we could use AI tools to characterize what lifts you up or pushes you down if we followed you over time? With self-report, yeah, but also just listening and scoring what you say, or the wearables that you have in terms of what's happening with heart rate variability, or with polyvagal tone, or whatever the thing is that might interest you, with your sleep patterns, or all of those kinds of things. With proper controls for privacy, we already have statistical tools working in the lab to be able to do that. And what's important about it is that then we can stop this nonsense that in order to understand you, we've got to compare you to everybody else at a single time point, or maybe 2 or 3 pre-post follow-up, please. But not just that our measures have to be based on the consistency between people. Like if somebody says, I feel spinny, and you say, oh, well, in order to know what spinny means, quick, stop, don't say anything else. I got to ask you, and 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 you. Now, let's see how consistent it is. What are we doing? I mean, what I want to know is what you meant by spinny. I get that's hard in the traditional way we do science. It's not hard now. We already have tools that we're working on that begin to characterize that. Is that a matter of cognitive inflexibility? Does it have an emotional tone, etc.? We're headed that way in the lab. And we can look to see how it functions over time. Hey, I'm spinny. Does that lift you up, push you down? Does it change over time? It's pushing you down now, but later on, it's okay. We can model all that. And when we do that, we understand that for you, but it's going to take AI tools to do that. Now, I know that people get creepy. They say, oh, AI, oh my goodness. I get that. And no, I don't want to just turn the world over to the machines. In my last days are getting better. I was talking about people who are having conversations with curated and contained AI, and almost treat those patterns as if they're entities. And I continue to explore that. I think we're far away from machine consciousness now, but I think we may get there. But the bigger point is, how can we evolve a cooperative relationship with what's happening, and it's going to happen, in a way that lifts people up? And one of the ways that it might would be being able to use AI to deal with the domination of the weird world by, one at a time, in people's practice, in their clinical work, or just in their own personal exploration and development, using tools that will, first with self-report, but then with wearables, and then with maybe even behavioral observations, protected in terms of their privacy, begin to notice patterns over time, person by person, that lift people up or push people down, and then collect them into clusters. And to do that, we don't need to do that in a weird world. We would need to do that across the world. And we can through tech. Now, sometimes people say, oh, tech, that's only the rich countries. I said, excuse me. There's only 15% of the world's population that have access to mental health care in the form of human beings. And something between 85 and 90% of the world's population has access to a smartphone. Now, maybe their families, maybe they'll share it, etc. Okay. But we're already there. We're many, many multiples. And what I envision and hope for is not that we're going to turn over this important work to the machines, but they will expand the reach of caring professionals with coaches, therapists who practice in different ways. And yeah, some self-help, just like we do now with self-help books, we can have self-help apps that are backed up by support and by coaches and by even psychotherapy if it's needed in a worldwide system based on tech as an extension of human connection, not as a replacement for it. We can extend that in other ways. I mean, you can rate the degree to which the work you do with somebody is filled with human connection. That can be done from transcripts. That can be done right now from feedback-informed therapy. People who really care about therapeutic alliance, for example, ask your clients every session what they're thinking and let it influence you. Well, that can be done with tech, even better, and expand it out. So I'm not going to spend more time on that. I'll let the blog speak for itself. But I am going to stop here and share something with you, and then I'll come back and finish off with a few other things. What I'm going to share with you is a song. I've been writing them recently where I write the lyrics. I do a little bit of smoothing with the help of AI, just a little bit, because I really don't want AI to, and it can't, basically. It can't do a good job of writing what I really deeply feel. But then when I get those lyrics really worked out of working with software to turn them into a song, now I know that raises issues of fairness and so forth, should that happen. Just like ChatGPT does and the rest with, should that happen with the world's literature being skimmed and put into these big, but it seems to me that cat's out of the barn. That's a mixture of metaphors, isn't it? That horse is out of the barn. And what I'm experiencing is that, there's something really cool about it. When I write songs for people I love, clients, so forth, and I'm putting them, by the way, in the apps I'm developing and in the back end of IBH through Patreon. I'll mention that after you listen to this. But this is a little song that happened because somebody wrote me and said that she used the idea of giving your mind a name with her young child. She thought it was really cool, and she gave me the name that the child came up with and described how that helped the child when there were impulsive thoughts or critical thoughts to get a little bit of space. It's a classic ACT exercise. And so I'm going to stop here and play a song. If you're a professional and you're interested in these, at the end there's a little commercial how you can get it from PsychFlex. But if you aren't a professional and you can do it another way, I will post down below a Patreon link, and at a certain level we'll make these songs that I develop available to you on a monthly basis. So with that, let me pause here and see what you think of my song called Hey There Little Zooie.
My mind is like a little chum, it talks inside my head. Sometimes it shouts more cookies now, beside me in my bed. I named it Zooie cause it runs from here to over there. So I say, hey Zooie friend, come sit down in the chair. It's like a bossy person who whispers just to me. Sometimes it says such scary things and tells me how to be. I notice how the words come out like clouds up in the sky. It's making thoughts and I see them as they all float by. Hey there little Zooie, do you ever stop? I hear all your stories as they crackle, snap and pop. With a wiggle and giggle, I hear you say it's true. And you can come along with me, but I'll pick what to do. My friend gave his own mind a name, he calls it Funny Duck. It says for him to grab those toys, it wants the car and truck. But he says thank you Funny Duck, I think I'd rather share. When I play nice than others do, like high fives in the air. You might call your sparkling or blue or silly guy. Give it a name you really like, you need no reason why. When it says you have to be scared of dark and gloom, thank your mind for the thought and then go find your room. Hey there, little Zooie, do you ever stop? I hear all your stories as they crackle, snap, and pop. With a wiggle and giggle, I hear you say it's true, and you can come along with me, but I'll pick what to do. Sometimes my mind is nipping me like a playful pup, jumping up with ideas and knocking down my cup. It's not trying to be mean, it's not my enemy. It just tags along and pokes and scolds, it even says it's me. Hello, my mind, I see you now, so it's okay to stay. We'll listen and we'll both grow up, each in our own way, with a smile and a skip. I'm a kid, you see, so Zooie, you now have your name, but the person here is me. Hey there, little Zooie, do you ever stop? I hear all your stories as they crackle, snap, and pop. With a wiggle and giggle, I hear you say it's true, and you can come along with me, but I'll pick what to do. Zooie, come along with me, but I'll pick what to do.
So what do you think? If you shared that with a kid who's maybe a little bit hooked by their thoughts, or a little bit, ADHD-ish in their behavior, do you think it might be helpful? The parent who wrote me and gave me the idea, based on a classic exercise, giving your mind a name, it did help that child, she thought, and that's why I did it. And it's not tested, but we do know that giving your mind a name, etc., is part of a set of diffusion methods that have been tested many, 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 many times. And I think there's something funny and interesting and uplifting and sticks in your head about a song like this that does reach, I think, people in a way that isn't just blah, blah, blah cognitive. And, I'm kind of a blah, blah, blah cognitive kind of guy, but I've always been interested in art and music and songs. I've written them my whole life. And now to have tech tools that, you don't have to rely on my voice and my guitar playing and so forth, is kind of cool. It does raise issues of fairness, I know that, with regard to what about the singers and so forth. Just like now the AI-generated commercials, or the AI-generated code, or, all four of my kids are into the areas that are being impacted by that. And, not to subtract that concern, there's something very uplifting about being able to do something. I wrote a song for somebody who was facing possible death recently with leukemia. And I realized in writing it that it was really, really important to an issue between my wife and I. And we listened to it and we cried together, And I'm not saying I'm using that as some sort of badge or something. It's just, I'm saying, if it's meaningful to me, if it's meaningful to people who are listening, why wouldn't therapists want to do things that have that little level of meaning, or have access to tools that would? It's very common to share movie clips or poems or cool things that we find, and I think it's good for the world, although it has a downside of disrupting as well. So with that, if you're interested in me doing a song in a particular area, especially if it's linked to a classic exercise, one shape or form, and especially if I do a good job, if you'll make a contribution to IBH, my charitable organization, let me know, and I'll see if I can get around to it. I was able to do that for my friend and his partner who's facing leukemia. A few other things, just things to be of note before I close down. ACT Boot Camp in Europe. The link will be down below. is plugging along, man, and it has limited enrollment, and it's happening. I'm also doing a series of 2-day workshops, one in Philly, and now one that just was posted in Arizona, on reimagining ACT. And I'm trying to get into some of these various issues that I'm talking about. If you're an ACT person, ACT therapist, look for it. Just go over to IBH, www.ibh.com, which is the charitable organization that I'm president of. And one reason I'm doing it there, frankly, is to raise money for the charity, because the charity then is used to develop MindGrapher, which is how we're going to try to do this new kind of statistical analysis that gets us out of bell curves and standard deviations in the aggregate and instead focuses on the needs of particular people. I want to do a little shout out for the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science and the WorldCon, the World Conference, which will be in New Orleans. Yipes, just 3 weeks from now. Hot and sweaty, but boy, we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to play one of my songs. In fact, I'm playing this song. Well, it's a secret. And I'm not going to, you don't tell what you're going to do in Follies. This is our little, I almost made an error. I am going to do a song in the Follies, but I won't say which one and why. But if you have any interest in ACT, figure out a way to get there. Just go to contextualscience.org and look at the options there. Rick Hansen and I are doing a 2-day pre-con, a workshop of linking up his work, which is pretty cool, on retaining positive gains. He's author of Buddha's Brain and so forth, and ACT, and to see how we can dovetail some of those different things. There's some other people who are just awesome. Lisa Feldman Barrett, the author of How Emotions Are Made, Michael Tomasello, one of the best-known evolutionary scientists on the planet, and most cited psychologist on the planet. David Sloan Wilson is going to be there, but Ginger Sadra's given a talk. Oh my goodness, I get in trouble because once I start doing this, I should name all of them, but I'm not going to. My point being, I mean, if you come down to a WorldCon, you just almost levitate within an hour if you have any ACT interest, because you can just feel the energy in the group. And I know the registration's going really, really well. We're going to have a great time down there in New Orleans. And so with that, I think I'll wrap it up. Days are getting better. Episode 44. Peace, love, and life, my friends.